Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Stephen Interviews You. This is episode number 11. I'm your host, Stephen Vitz, and this is a series where I sit down and have a good chat with a special guest, and his name would be, introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Mark Zanetto. How are you? Thanks, Stephen, for bringing me on the program.
Uh, Thanks for being my guest here today, Mark. And so let's just get started here. Basically, for starters, what inspired you to start making YouTube videos in general? What was it that got you really going?
Yeah, I think if people Google me, I don't know what. I honestly haven't done that in a really long time, so I don't know what would come up. But I think if you did, it would likely be something around. First, I played professional tennis, and then retired from that sport, and basketball and football to a degree have always been kind of my loves because I played. I'm older, so everyone played everything when I was a kid, right? So whatever sport you were best at, which was tennis for me, is kind of what you focused on, but you still had a toe in the water for basketball, for football. And so, but if people know me around basketball now, because I am absolutely a basketball analyst. I'm a junkie. I watch games at 2 a.m. from the Mountain West, or if Hawaii's playing a team, I'll stay up and watch that game. Last year, when I was still on the Locked On Network, we did a live Thanksgiving Day pod that UConn was playing in Maui, and that game started at midnight, and it didn't end until like 2:30 in the morning. So we're sickos. We definitely are. Love our hoops in Connecticut. But the football team has also kind of given us some good memories last year too. And I started doing this because I love doing it. And I was talking to my father one day. It's like, why wouldn't I do this and get paid for it when him and I talk about something UConn related almost every day? So I'm lucky enough to, still have my dad around. So we'll talk on the phone at least once or twice a week about, have you seen the highlights of this player? Have you seen this guy do this? And so that's just been my, kind of the why of all this. And plus I love it, man. I can't, talking sports is a labor of love because it can get frustrating. Social media can be a drag, but the actual content is definitely my happy place.
Yeah. So sticking to YouTube, you now run this channel called the Big East Energy Network. Could you give viewers, first-time viewers, a walkthrough of the Big East Energy Network, what it's about, and what you guys do there?
Yeah. Big East Energy Network is a collection of podcasts. I have my show. It's called the Hoops Cap Pod. It's a homage to the basketball capital of the world. We can't use that. Actually, we probably could use that, but we couldn't put it on merchandise or anything like that. So the Hoops Cap is essentially my playlist. It's the most active. But then we have 7 other schools that we represent. We're trying to get all 11 of the Big East conference schools. Some of which play FCS football, some of which, obviously don't have football. So, the St. John's, Providence, Seton Hall, Marquette, Creighton. So for us right now, the only schools that we don't have represented are Marquette, Xavier, Providence, and I always miss the last one. But either way, we have 7 of the 11. It was made around myself and Casey Matthews, who was a former Creighton assistant coach under Coach McDermott right now, and we wanted to build a show and then a network around what we believe is the soul of college basketball, the Big East Conference, right? And kind of still harken back to the good old days when that conference was kind of the king of college basketball, and so we built that, and we do shows daily. Anytime you click on that YouTube channel, there's likely going to be another show. It may be mine. It may be a St. John's show. It could be a Creighton show. We have 2 dedicated women's basketball shows on the Big East side, and then for the WNBA. So we are a basketball channel. But I'll break some news for you here. Like, it's not really maybe news for your listeners, but we started a football channel called Big Football Energy. It has 0 subscribers because I haven't done any kind of promotion of it. But football is starting, and we want to dip our toe in that, and we have some good hosts that we're getting ready to roll out. So it's building, and if anyone ever wants to start a podcast, go to bigenergymedia.com, mediapods.com, and you can send us a pitch, and we'll talk about whether or not you want to jump on one of our networks.
Yeah, that was going to be one of the questions I was going to ask about what your plans were for football, because I started noticing your content through the UConn football program. So
Yeah.
that's good to know. So segueing into that, obviously we all know that UConn has just a phenomenal foundation when it comes to basketball, both men's and women's basketball. But also in comparison, the football program. So this is going to be my question. When it comes to Stores, Connecticut, the fan base, Huskies fans, how do they view both the basketball and football programs? How do they like make that comparison as far as the
Uh,
value?
yeah, I think it's I think there's a very it's not split. It's a very small percentage. I would say 10 to 20% of the fan base love the football program and would love to see it, go to a Power Four, the Big 12, Big 10, SEC. Maybe merge with the ACC, as some myself and others have discussed that on different shows. But for the majority of UConn Nation, I would say 80%. Maybe I'm being generous and giving the football side 20%. I would say 80 to 90% of the fan base is loves that UConn football is relevant, but not at the expense of the basketball program, which has built the entire foundation of what people know and the brand that is UConn. I know the football program has been around since 1889. I'm literally wearing a hat that I made myself that says Connecticut football, and it has 1889 on the logo. So it's been around forever. But just because you've been doing something forever doesn't mean it's a good product. And UConn football is a good product currently under head coach Jim Mora. I think that it's headed in the right direction. But I think for most fans of Connecticut athletics, it's always going to be that, oh, that's nice. Like we won 9 games last year in the Fenway Bowl. Awesome. Brings a lot of eyeballs. You beat North Carolina in the Fenway Bowl. Fantastic. But it's never going to be what the basketball program is. And that's okay. Guess what? Kansas football is not what Kansas basketball is. Duke football is not what Duke basketball is. Kentucky's in the SEC. Do you think Kentucky basketball fans give a rip about Kentucky football if Kentucky wins a national championship? They don't care. They would love it. They would. I mean, trust me, those fans are psychos too. Like where they would absolutely lose their minds if they won a national championship in basketball versus football. A good question for you. I'm going to send it back to you. Think about it from this perspective. All of the blue bloods, like these basketball powers. Indiana is a great one. Indiana I feel like was a blue blood, probably isn't now, but they're kind of trying to work their way back. They were in the college football playoff last year. Would Indiana athletic fans trade that college football playoff appearance for an Indiana Final Four?
Historically, I'd have to think that Indiana fans would probably go with that Final Four appearance. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because fans don't care about money. Like, I mean, they don't. Like, we know that football runs the ship when it comes to the monetary and the TV rights. And how awesome would it be if UConn football made a college football playoff? It's probably not going to happen. And that would be great. But it's like a secondary thing for some fan bases. Ohio State football, it's their deal. If Ohio State wins a national championship in basketball, cool. But it's not going to make or break someone's life if you're a Buckeyes fan.
Right. So yeah, about UConn football, and this is like really at the heart of why I wanted to have this interview is like UConn football, where it's at, where it's going. And you mentioned Jim Moore Jr., the head coach. I'm also going to mention the athletic director, David Benedict, as well.
Mm-hmm.
The combination of those two. Have they, at least up to this point, have they done enough to bring at least more awareness to the football program of UConn?
I definitely think so. I mean, Jim, and this is something I don't know how active you are on social media, but if you clip this, but and I got scolded for this because it's easy to say Jim Mora Jr. because that's his dad's name. He's not a junior. Like it's not even in his bio. And if you after I got kind of corrected, I looked it up and they were right. So it's just Jim Mora. I think he's a phenomenal coach. He's a great He's a great motivator. He's the type of guy that you just that really kind of doesn't care anymore because he's done it all. He's been to the NFL. He's coached at a high level in college. This is similar to like if you were if money was no object, because it isn't for Jim, and you just wanted to do something for the love of it. That's what he's doing. Now, is he getting paid handsomely? Yes, he's making like $3 million a year. But comparatively to, high-level coaches in the P4 in the NFL, that's kind of like in the lower half of that range. But he is pouring every ounce of himself into this, as his dad taught him. I think they've done a great job, because he's going on Jim Rome national radio. Like UConn coaches didn't go on national radio shows, football shows, earlier, in previous administrations. And to flip it to Dave Benedict, I had Dave on my show the other day. The brand of UConn is at its highest. Like you can point to moments in time, 1999 winning a national championship against Duke, 04 double national championship with the men and the women, and then again in 14. Only 2 times it's ever been done in the history of college basketball. But as far as the football program goes, you're parlaying that off of your brand of basketball. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if you watched last year, this team was exciting. They scored a lot of points. They won in a lot of different ways. They're playing a brand of football that at least we haven't seen in a while. And I think they've done a phenomenal job. Dave is always willing to go on shows. He's active on social media. He'll respond to fan bases. They're doing a lot to, let's essentially say, create better facilities. And they're doing it with, NIL money, with, the ability to bring recruits in and transfers that maybe would get more money to go to, say, like a Michigan. He's mentioned that a few times. So has Jim, that during the offseason, his players got poached to the tune of maybe $3-4 million and stuck around. And that tells you a lot about what the culture they've built in stores.
Yeah, that's good. So when it comes to facilities, might as well get this one out of the way. Facilities, Pratt and Whitney Stadium at Stores, Connecticut, where the football Huskies play. Are there and have there been upgrades being planned for that stadium? And what's it been like when it comes to that?
The rent, as it's called here, locally and throughout the country, it's one of those things. It was a state-of-the-art facility, 20 something years ago. It is not anymore. However, I would say the type of money and infrastructure they put into the practice facilities are second to none. Like, I'll point to an interview I did with Jack Barton, who came from Furman last year. And I don't know what Jack's up to. I think he went to a bunch of camps this year and is trying to catch on with an NFL team as a defensive lineman. We wish him the best. But he mentioned how, he did a visit with Georgia Tech, an ACC school, and UConn's practice facility blew them away. So, it's the stadium itself is perfect for, visiting teams to come in because it's close to Hartford, jumping off the airport. It's not the best thing in the world to not have a football stadium on campus. I asked Dave about, is there ever any plans to potentially build a stadium on campus? And he was very politically correct and just essentially said, look, we need to win football games. And if they continue to win 9-10 games a year in the FCS, whether they go to a power conference or not, I think that kind of talk would happen. And I think that there's definitely plans in the future to update the rent, because they just did updates to Gamble Pavilion and in the now People's United Bank Arena, which was once the XL Center down in Hartford. So the 2 basketball facilities that UConn plays in have had major upgrades this past offseason to create more amenities, more suites, things like that. So I think that that's definitely in the plans. Nothing official, but if I know Dave Benedict, those guys are, they're always thinking about ways to improve, and I can't see why they wouldn't do it in the future.
So, as far as the atmosphere goes, for game day, and this is specifically for football, UConn football.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like before the games begin there at Stores?
Yeah, I think it's the vibes are always strong, especially now that they're the expectations of winning. I think that there's definitely an atmosphere of you, you know wanting to be kind of a big time program. I'll take it to I believe I wasn't at this game. I'm trying to remember the exact team that they played, but I believe they in when they were in the Big East, like when Big East had football. I forget which Big Ten school visited the Rent, and there's a 40,000 seat capacity, and if they fill that stadium out, it's louder than even a maybe not the Big House in Michigan, but it would rival any SEC Big Ten school. I know people would laugh at that, but think about the dimensions. When you have a smaller stadium, it feels like the people are on top of you. Obviously, if you have 100,000 people and it's a little further away from the field, still very loud, still very intimidating. But the atmosphere is pretty intimidating for schools when they get people to come, and that's been the issue. You know what I mean? Like, I think last year they had a better average attendance than half of the Big 12 schools, and I'm using that as a comparison because there was this thought process when we reported about talks of UConn moving to the Big 12 with everything and football, and was it 4 or 5 years, and all of the chatter on social media was, well, they don't have anybody that comes to games. And then if you go and look at teams like Kansas, teams like Iowa State, like these other schools, like they had less average attendance at home than us. And so it was kind of like that was a fallacy. And another great example was they played, they got crushed by Maryland in the first game of the year. I think we would have played a lot better if we played them towards the end of the year, but got destroyed at Maryland. And you go to that first broadcast view, essentially it looks like us, right? We're getting ready to call a game. The stadium's behind us and there's no one there. And, people are, oh, that's a Big Ten school, it used to be an ACC school. So, I think anytime something change related happens, especially with a non-football school, people want to hate on it. People want to put their hot take on it. Oh, that's not a football school. Okay. It's just some of it sometimes don't let facts get in the way of a good story, right?
Right. So, about UConn football and where it's headed, and this is like a key question here. It's been talked about for the last couple of years where exactly UConn football is going to go, what conference they could join. Talk about Big 12 or maybe ACC. Just your opinion. Where do you see those talks going, Mark, within like a few years from now?
Well, let me ask you a question to clarify.
Okay.
Do you think it's more of a question around the best fit culturally, or where I think they're going to
go? Realistically, where do you think they're going to wind up?
Realistically, if they, I'll put a caveat. If they have another year where they win 9-10 games, I think those invites will start to come. Big 12, if the ACC loses, I feel like, there was a lot of BS talk about North Carolina going to the SEC. Good now that Bill Belichick's there. It's possible, but that's not happening until the contract with the ACC runs out, in terms of, I think it's like 2030. So if by, I'll use that as a caveat, by 2030, when a lot of these media rights deals are kind of coming to be redone, you could see some more conference realignment. Could things happen like in principle sooner than that? Like, hey, we have an agreement to go to the Big 12 in 2030 or the ACC. Absolutely. But I don't think any UConn fan has to worry about conference realignment from a football perspective, or their precious Big East, which I obviously love because it's our brand. I don't have an answer for you like concrete, but if you put a gun to my head and said which which school is or which conference is UConn going to go to, I think it's probably the Big 12, because I think there's a people don't forget about this. UConn had an opportunity to go to the ACC, and anybody that listens to this can Google this. The ACC wanted UConn during that kind of big poach of the Big East back in the day before they got annexed to the American, or what is now the American Conference. Syracuse went, BC, Miami, Florida State, that whole thing. BC's athletic department absolutely blocked UConn from going to the ACC. They absolutely did that. UConn would have been in the ACC for the last, I don't even know when that happened, since mid 2000s. And so that is not something that UConn fans or administrations forget. And I know it's not the same administration. Dave Benedict wasn't around then. But if the ACC came calling, it would have to be a pretty sweet deal, like right away. We get full rev share. We get all this, we get that, because it's kind of like almost like payback for, what they tried to do to UConn before. And if it's a difference between the ACC and the Big 12, I think from a cultural perspective, the ACC makes more sense, but then again, Stephen, the ACC has Cal and Stanford in it. So kind of from a visual standpoint, from like a regional aspect, nothing makes sense anymore. So dollars, it'll just come down to dollars and cents. I think both conferences have their appeal. As a basketball fan first, I think the Big 12 makes more sense, just because there's a lot more potential to have these new rivalries with Kansas, with Houston, and those guys aren't going anywhere. I know someone would say, "Well, Mark, what about Duke and the ACC?" Yep, that'd be true too. That'd be true as well. But the ACC as a whole, their brand has kind of started to dip a little bit, whereas the Big 12 is starting to ascend. And so I think I'd rather go on the ship that's going this way versus the one that's going this way.
Okay. So I only have a couple more questions before we wrap this up. So we'll get this one out of the way. The upcoming season, 2025 college football season for the UConn Huskies, you've reviewed their schedule. What does it look like as far as a brief rundown of the roster and what the schedule looks like for the UConn Huskies?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say about the roster before we get into the schedule aspect of it is UConn, for the first time in a few years, has a really comfortable starting quarterback. Joe Fayano, the main transfer, is I couldn't even tell you all the reasons why. He's in his 7th year. Some of it is injury. Some of it obviously is he still had a COVID year. So he's an older guy. He had a fantastic year last year. Every time he came in, I'm not saying they tried to force Nick Evers, the Wisconsin transfer, into the starting role. And I think Nick is a great kid and he's smart and he's really good at what he does. But Joe is just kind of like I would use this example because he just kind of has that same stature. He's not as big. But and I'm saying Tom Brady from like Tom Brady when 2003, a rookie, 2004, just calm, cool, collective. Isn't gonna beat you with his legs, but he has a quick release. He's got a big arm. And I'm talking a rocket arm. Like there are some throws that he makes that he probably should throw with a little more touch, but Joe can make all the throws. They feel really comfortable with him. They lost a big running back whose name is escaping me right now, and I'll look it up here in a second, to Auburn in the transfer portal. But their running back group is actually really strong. Gordon Samus, the offensive line and offensive coordinator, starts to kind of, when he has that running game, he's realizing that, as a first-time play caller last year, how to mix things up. And I really think that they're going to have a really good offense this year. Explosive. Skylar Bell comes back. He's a really explosive wide receiver that I think is going to be an NFL player at some point. Shamar Porter, I think is phenomenal. I think there's some excitement around this offense. The defense is going to be a question mark for next season under Matt Brock, who I love as a defensive coordinator. But the schedule itself is interesting. And I say that because there's some very winnable games, and there's some games that are going to be like 50-50, like playing the ACC schools, Syracuse on September 6th and Boston College on the 18th. those are going to be the two toughest games on their schedule. Duke on November 8th, so there's 3. I think I read somewhere that UConn has a 28% chance of going undefeated, which is pretty damn good. It's just a hybrid schedule. They played some FCS schools. They play some, quote unquote lower level 1A schools. So I'm just ready for games to start, man. We're in this kind of like holding pattern of August where football's about to start. There's no basketball, and I'm just itching to talk about the actual games.
And as a little side note, as far as scheduling goes, in the future, for future seasons, definitely as long as they're still independent. Would you be okay, Mark, if the UConn Huskies scheduled, certain regular season games against certain G number level schools, such as mine, the Ohio Bobcats?
Absolutely, man. Like I think it really just is a matter of schedules come together based off of, and this, Stephen, like it's sometimes it's about, Jim or a guy in the coaching staff goes, oh, I know, so and so at in Ohio, and I think they're looking to pick up a game next year. We should call them and see if it fits. And so that's sometimes like people look too much into scheduling. Like a lot of it is just who do you know, how can we get it done? Does it make sense logistically? And that's how it gets done. And then a lot of times it's scheduled out, a year in advance, 2 years in advance. So yeah, I mean, if there's connections within the programs to Ohio, absolutely.
Yeah, I only mentioned that because that's been on my short list of schools that I'd like to see the Ohio Bobcats play ever so often. It's like, yeah, UConn, they should be on that list somewhere. I wouldn't mind having that game, whether it's in Athens or in stores. So,
Sure.
yeah. And so, one last question before before we get going here. In general, uh, college sports, where it's headed with NIL, transfer portal, governance, all this talk. And I know this is going to sound like a broad question, but in your
Yeah.
opinion, Mark, big picture, long term, where do you see all this going for college sports? Not just for one sport, but just in general.
I actually think, and it's so funny you mentioned this. Next week, we're having Ross Dellinger on to talk about all of this. Do like about a 30-minute conversation with him about, NIL and can collectives do this? Can they not do that? Like there's been a lot of different cases that have come down. And then, the NCAA's like board of governors right now is kind of put out a couple of different ethos about, what can and can't happen. All the rev share stuff. I honestly think what it's going to come down to is this. I've known a bunch of international players, a couple that are actually, are on UConn right now. And then when I was covering the Southern Conference in basketball, some players that have come from Spain and other places where they have these club teams that are, professional and they pay. In Europe, I know Americans hate when we describe, what Europeans do to what Americans do. But in terms of just sports in general, in the way we deal with education in Europe, if you go to university, as they call it, versus college, that's what you do. You're going to go be an engineer. You're going to go be a psychologist. You're going to be a poet. You're going to be a writer. Whatever your choice of university school is, that's what you go do. If you're a basketball player, you go play basketball professionally. Like you go play. And if you want to go to school after and get a degree, the university is still there. So I could see what I think we should do, and what I think there could be is if we started getting into this collective bargaining, where you take college athletics and put it to the side and say this is its own entity. There's like a UConn basketball club, a UConn football club, and that's what you do. And can you still take some classes to kind of like help yourself out, mentally, physically, whatever? Absolutely. But you're not going to get a degree from UConn. You're going to go play basketball at UConn. And it separates the two things, especially in the revenue sports, basketball and football, and maybe baseball, because there's a professional angle to it. If you're a big time tennis player, you're not going to go play tennis at UConn. You're going to go play professional sports. because I wasn't a big time tennis player. I was a professional tennis player, but I played at a smaller school in Connecticut, Sacred Heart University. I did not go to UConn. Spoiler alert. And so I wasn't good enough to be a pro right away, but I was after school. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. I think we can agree that athletics now is kind of like this semi-professional pay for play angle. And I think at some point they have to separate that so that we can stop, for lack of a better word, BSing people of the student athletes. Okay, man. Like, let's just be real. If you're in Ohio, is there anybody at Ohio State playing football? Would you consider them a student athlete, or would you consider them a football player?
Football player.
Yeah, I think you could say that for a lot of things. And I know there's outliers, especially at UConn. Emeka Okafor, who was the number 2 pick in the draft, got his degree in economics, a double major in economics and finance in 3 years while playing at UConn under Jim Calhoun, pre-NIL. I get it. Kemba Walker graduated in 3 years. So, like, there are these outliers of just incredibly driven. Alex Caravan already has his degree. He's playing 1 more year. So, yeah, do the kids go to class? Sure. But the focus should be the focus. If you're a basketball player, focus on basketball player. If you're a student, focus on you're getting your degree. That's where I think it should go.
Yeah. So with that, we are going to finish this interview. So guys, for those of you watching this, I'll provide a link down to the Big East Energy Network channel that Mark and company run, and also other details as well. So thank you so much, Mark Zanetto, for being my guest here today for Stephen Interviews You, episode 11. I really do appreciate it, and it gives me a little bit more knowledge and insight about what's going on with UConn as a whole. So yeah, I really appreciate this, Mark. So
hey man, thanks for having me. No, I appreciate you too.
all right. So with that, guys, this has been Stephen Interviews You, episode 11, and we'll be back with more interview content very soon. Thank you, guys. Take care.